Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where professionals in the field educate, inform and inspire the community to live a healthier and balanced life and live the lifestyle they love. Our first guest today is holistic counsellor Barbara Jackson, and we'll be talking about an holistic approach to anxiety. Welcome to the program, Barbara.
Thank you, Melissa. It's a pleasure to be here.
Barbara, in terms of anxiety, what is it?
So, Melissa, anxiety is something that many of us experience at different periods in our life. It's the fear of what may happen. So it may be based on experiences we've had and the fear of them being repeated, or it may be the fear of new experiences. Having to see somebody we don't know, go to an environment that makes us feel unsafe, unsecure. So the anxiety is the fear of feeling threatened or feeling that we won't be able to keep safe in the space or with those people. People experience anxiety in many different ways. So there's heavy breathing, increased heart rate, adrenaline rushes, what we call our stress hormone, cortisol, also flows really, really strongly. And so we're in what we call the fight, flight or freeze mode. And sometimes people don't understand that this is actually anxiety. They may feel, oh, I felt a bit rattled in that. And when they realize that this is something that repeats quite frequently, different circumstances or the same circumstances, then they can look into and maybe understand that it is actually anxiety they're experiencing. What happens as well, they may sweat. They may have the shakes. They may feel nauseous. They may feel that they feel really weak or tired. They can also feel confused or overwhelmed. And then on a more spiritual level, they may feel completely disconnected from all the energies, all the resources that they would normally have. So many people also experience anxiety to the extent where it leads to a panic attack, which is a really exacerbated level of all of those symptoms.
With anxiety, how would you use a holistic approach to deal with it?
So a holistic approach is looking at our mental, emotional, physical and spiritual well-being. So first of all, we would check with the client if they had actually been for a medical check to see that there isn't anything physically happening, chemical imbalances or anything like that. Then we would look at their history and gently and nurturingly explore when the anxiety started, how it started. They may know, they may not recognize it. They may go, well, it just happens. I don't know. So helping them to explore the causes, the triggers of the anxiety. With the holistic approach, this may also be bringing in energy healing, something like Reiki, also looking at maybe using some essential oils, some sound healing, and we can explore that at a later date as well. It's a big topic. However, it's also helping them to get to the root cause. So when we go to the root cause, that's where the healing can begin. Clients then also learn things like breathing techniques, because when we're in that panicky, anxious state, we're not really breathing properly. When we learn to take those slower, deeper breaths, we're slowing down our heart rate. We're slowing down the adrenaline. We're slowing down the cortisol. You know, sometimes when you just take that big breath and have a sigh, and it's like, oh, that feels better. So this is very similar, except we do repetitive, slow, deep breathing. This takes a person into what we call the parasympathetic state. So it's resetting our system and bringing us back into the present, where we're then able to take that moment to go, am I safe? What is the actual fear? And how else can I navigate it in a calmer state, in a more relaxed state?
Talking about the past and, is a holistic approach based in the past?
Oh, Melissa, if we look back at Hippocrates, some people may not have heard of him. So he's a Greek person who he actually started looking at us as a whole, as a mind, body and soul. And through his studies, he actually introduced a holistic approach to well-being. And it's also important for us to understand that beyond anxiety, a holistic approach can also support us if we're experiencing depression or trauma. It can support us if we're experiencing something like low self-esteem, or when we feel that we're stuck in our lives, we don't know how to move forward. So there are various approaches and techniques within the holistic counselling that can help us to untap why we're stuck, why we're holding on to the trauma. And when we heal, the important thing to remember is our story is still our story. So we may still have had the anxiety. However, it's not all consuming now. If you take a book, a big, bright, colourful book, and you open it up, or you're watching a movie and you feel like you're stepping into the colour and you're stepping into all the emotions of it, when we heal, we're still able to tell our story. That book becomes that dusty old tatty book that we can put on the bottom of the bookshelf somewhere, because we're not stepping into the raw emotions of the anxiety or the trauma or the depression. So we're able to then move forward in life with hope, with joy, with focus, and also with strategies. When we look at our breathing, when I did talk about slowing down our breathing, there is a vagus nerve, which is the longest nerve that goes from our head all the way down to our digestive system. When we reset that, we do it through a breath that's an inhale of 5 to the count of 5, and then we exhale slowly to the count of 10. And again, this slows our whole body down, helps the shoulders drop, help us to see things a lot clearer, to focus a lot better, because we also bring in oxygen into our brain as well. So this helps us in many, many ways, and also helps our digestive system as well.
What advice would you give to people who would like to go and use this approach in their journey?
Oh, certainly, Melissa. It's first of all making sure that you seek professional advice, making sure that whoever you are going to see, that you feel you connect with them. Somebody's already anxious and they then going to a stranger, that's not necessarily going to help the anxiety. So with having that little conversation, it helps them to feel a little bit more comfortable and supported when coming to see me, or going to see any other professional as well.
Well, thank you very much for that. I learnt quite a lot.
Thank you very much.
If you would like to know more about a holistic approach to anxiety and Barbara, you can go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we'll have another guest with an interesting topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, health coach Denise Mokadsi will be discussing the smartest workout for your body type and how you can have the fastest fitness results with less effort. Welcome back. Our second guest is health coach Denise Mokadsi. Will be discussing the smartest workouts for your body type and how to have the best results with the least amount of effort. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you.
Denise, when it comes to fitness, is more exercise always better?
Sounds like it should be, doesn't it? Like if something's good, let's just do more of it and it'll be better. But that's actually not always true. And our genes have a big part of that. What we do and our genes together, that combination is referred to as epigenetics. And so when we look at what we're doing with our lifestyle and how it influences our genes, then we can make really smart decisions about what we might do, for example, with exercise. So for some people, exercising more might be better if they're not doing much. But if someone's already doing quite a lot, more exercise is going to be harmful. It's all really about stress management, and we can definitely look at someone's body type through epigenetics. We can test for that. We can do measures on how they actually look, which gives us really important information, really interesting information, like the size of someone's muscle and the density of it. and how they respond, whether they've got a lot of fast muscle twitch fibres or slow muscle twitch fibres, makes them more predisposed to particular exercises or workouts. So one will be more suited to sprints, for example. So the fast muscle twitch fibre, they're very good sprinters, whereas the slow twitch muscle fibre are more the endurance kind of bodies. We also can look at whether someone is more of a strength trainer and they get good results building muscle by lifting weights, whereas someone else that might take a lot of work to get a similar result because their body type or their genetics don't suit building muscle, for example. We can look even deeper about the genes and see whether someone has got certain genes that allows them to recover particular ways or how their body uses adrenaline. And again, really, it's all just how do we manage stress, because exercise is a stress. And this is why exercising more is not always exactly the answer, because it introduces more stress into a body.
Is it true understanding your genetics and your exact body type can help you design smarter and more effective workouts overall?
For the sort of a similar reason. So if we know someone's got a lot of genetics, that means that they're going to be a better sprinter. It's better for that person to do more sprint work. It's also about what their goals are. So if they were wanting to build muscle and have a strength program, they could still do it, but it's quite helpful for the trainer to know that their body is more suited to sprint work, and just to give the client realistic expectations that they can still build muscle. But if you think of a weightlifter, they look very different to a marathon runner. You can see the different body types are suited to one particular exercise more than the other. But often we find that people who have a certain goal around something will pick that goal because they know their body that suits their body. Like a marathon runner type body is probably not going to be someone that wants to be a weightlifter. They're going to they like doing more of the sprint work. It feels better for them. And so people can work it out through trial and error. But it's nice to have some genetic testing done to know, okay, I'm going to need more recovery, or my body responds better to one type of exercise than another.
Denise, how do you test for this?
We can look at the DNA sequence and the effect of lifestyle on the sequence to look for these epigenetic markers or variations. And sometimes that can involve a blood test or a urine test or stool or a swab, cheek swab. We're really just looking to see where can we get the genetic information to see what's going on with the genes. We can also do less invasive testing that doesn't require a blood sample, for example. It would be body measurements. We can just look at the different dimensions and proportions of body type, and that will also give us a diagnosis, like the relationship between someone's wrist size and length, or how thick their neck is, or how thick and how long a neck is. In relation to the other measurements, you can kind of see it. Like a shorter person with a thicker neck is more likely to be like a strength or a bodybuilder compared to someone with a long, lean neck who's more like a sprinter.
What practical ways could our viewers start making their exercise routines work better for their body types?
Testing is always good because everyone is so different. You can start noticing how you feel. Like if you're doing certain exercise, just see if sprint work feels good for you, or if lifting heavier weights starts to feel good for you, or your body responds well. That can be a good way to tell what's going on for you. It can be tricky though. Sometimes you might see someone else getting a really good response from heaps of interval work that they're doing. So you might think, I'm going to do that too. But maybe that doesn't suit you, and so it puts more stress on your body and you're not getting the results. It might work, but it's just a bit of a guesswork. It's trial and error. Other things people can do is really to notice how well they're recovering after a particular type of exercise. So if they're doing a lot of sprint work and the next day they feel really great and they recover quite well from it, it's probably an exercise that's suiting their body. Whereas if they're just dragging their feet and they feel terrible or feel injured, it's probably not something that suits their body. So, just noticing that, like tracking all of that. And I think taking enough recovery time. Lots of people, like, you said at the start, isn't more better. We think it is, but actually we get stronger when we're not training, like when we're sleeping and when we're recovering. So it's important to put in enough recovery sessions. So that might help someone realise, that might be a better way for them to get results, because now they're giving their body more time to recover. So, that would be another thing that I'd get people to sort of look at. And speak to a professional, like exercise professional, or get a DNA test to see exactly what's going on for your biology. That's probably the best way to know for sure.
Thanks for such important information, Denise.
Thank you.
If you'd like to know more about Denise and the best workout for your body type, please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we have another interesting guest with another interesting topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, naturopath, respiratory specialist and published author Julie Rudakova will be answering the question, is asthma for life? Welcome back. Our last guest today is naturopath, respiratory specialist and published author Julia Rudakova, and she will be answering the question, is asthma for life? Welcome, Julia.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, is it true? Is asthma for life?
So let's look at what asthma is and break it down from there. So asthma is a normal body response to a trigger. It could be chemical trigger, it could be a virus, could be hormones, could be emotions, could be a physical exercise. It can be dust, pollen, any irritant in the environment. And the body's natural response is to expel it, to constrict the airways, and to produce mucus. Bring it up, to take it out, to moisten the airways. And when that happens, we're forced to cough. The breathing changes. Sometimes it's harder to exhale. Sometimes for some people with asthma symptoms, it's harder to inhale. So it varies from person to person. And we need to break that vicious cycle of overbreathing when an asthmatic person gets into asthma symptoms for a prolonged period of time. When it settles in and the body starts breathing differently on a regular basis, even between asthma onsets. We start breathing differently. We're breathing more shallowly and sometimes with more force.
Is it possible to break the cycle of asthma?
Yes, of course it is. And that vicious cycle of overbreathing, I just want to break it down a little bit. What happens is that the chemoreceptors in the respiratory part of the brain, they detect how much carbon dioxide is there in the blood at all times. So it's mostly about carbon dioxide, not oxygen, right? When we think about what pushes us to take that next breath, people think, well, it's oxygen levels, it's carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is an amazing chemical and it's underutilized by people. And with the vicious cycle of overbreathing and mouth breathing, what happens is we lose that carbon dioxide, and it is a muscle relaxant. So when we talk about asthma, we think relaxation of the respiratory system, opening up the airways. To open them up, we need to relax the muscles of the bronchi. And to do that, we need to utilize that carbon dioxide. And to do that, we need to retrain the chemoreceptors in the respiratory part of the brain, and that's where the Buteyko breathing method comes in super handy, because there are certain exercises that we do. It's a progression. We move forward with the difficulty of the exercises. So to retrain the receptors, you need to be able to be tolerant to carbon dioxide. So the epidemic currently in the world is carbon dioxide intolerance. that pushes you to breathe fast, to breathe forcefully, to breathe a lot. And overbreathing, I always compare it to overeating. It's just as detrimental for our health on a very basic physiological chemical level. And to be able to do those exercises, you do not need any special physical preparation. As I said, we can start where the person is at. And that will break that cycle of overbreathing and bring the body back into the functional pattern so that you breathe utilizing the right muscles, because that's very important for the chemistry in the body. When we breathe, we engage the diaphragm. And when the diaphragm is engaged, that means that the air is moved, is circulating in the lungs properly. And the most blood vessels in the lungs we have in the lower lobes where the diaphragm is sitting. So using the right muscles, using the diaphragm is very important for establishing good chemistry in the body, and using the right organs, using the nose and doing it properly at a proper rate.
So what are some tips for people that are suffering with asthma symptoms?
I always say it's to educate yourself. Educate yourself about how your body works, what is actually happening when you have an asthma onset. And because asthma is considered to be a life-threatening condition, because breathing is the most vital function in the body. We can't survive for longer than 3 minutes without taking a breath. An average person with an average physiology, that's our time. To be able to hold that physiology, you need to know what is happening and not to freak out, and know what you can do. And I want to give you an example. When my youngest son was dealing with asthma and I was helping him with various tools that I have under my belt, and that's when I started really actively using the Buteyko method, the Buteyko technique. And we went on a school camp with him, and I was one of the parent helpers. And out of nowhere, he had been asthma-free for about 3 years before that. And because of the environment, the stress of the first school camp, he was so excited. And also just living without me in a separate room, and all the dust in the old mattresses and all rugs there in the room, that triggered his old asthma patterns. And on day 2, when they were having a fishing trip, on the way back, I could see, and I was there with him with that group, and I could see his face went white and he was struggling to take the next breath. And we just sat down on the log there on the beach, and because we didn't have Ventolin with us, he was asthma free, he had been for a few years. And we started doing that Buteyko exercise. And it's very important for people who use Ventolin, and because you don't know how much is left, and you can help yourself with that while you're waiting for help. So we started doing that, and the color came back to his face. His lips became red again. He started breathing, and we could walk on to the group. And I think it's just such a great example about educating yourself, learning those techniques that can help you to live a healthier life. And as always, seek advice of a health professional.
Thank you so much for your time, Julia. If you'd like to know more about asthma and Julia, you can visit her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And now we'll say goodbye until next week.
If you'd like to know more about our show, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.